This is a summary video for Overlord Season 4. The anime title and episode numbers are in the description below for anyone who's interested. Season 4 kicks off with the familiar scene of Albedo chilling in Ainz' room. She's there to sniff out any lingering scent of him, but from what I understand, Ainz is completely scent-free. Albedo's pondering how Ainz plans to rule the sorcerous kingdom. She tells herself that whatever his path, as Nazaric's overseer and Ainz' wife, she'll just follow along. Ainz, as usual, is pulling an all-nighter, but for relaxation, not work. When he mentions he's about to head out, his short-haired maid says she'll swap shifts with the next person. And Ainz nods. Ainz remarks it must be tough for her to stay up all night with him. But the maid drops the classic line, "Serving the supreme being is our greatest joy," leaving Ainz speechless. He secretly wonders what they'd think if he asked to be treated as an equal. Could he ever get back that feeling of camaraderie he had with his old guildmates? As soon as Ainz steps out of his room, the maid serving him that day enthusiastically greets him. Fifth asks what kind of outfit Ainz wants to wear today, and he tells her to decide. She happily agrees, but Fifth's decision is a little extra for Ainz. He awkwardly asks if the outfit isn't a bit too flashy, but Fifth denies it. She says it's perfectly suited for a king like Ainz, leaving him utterly without words. While Ainz is in his room, Fifth announces that Albedo and other elder liches wish to see him. And he agrees. The moment Albedo sees Ainz' outfit, she showers him with so many compliments that Ainz gets a little flustered. Ainz asks Albedo if these are the documents she and her team prepared. And Albedo confirms. Ainz tries to flip through a few pages but understands absolutely nothing. He mutters to himself, "No way a salaryman like me could ever understand a king's work," and just randomly stamps them. But Ainz figures Albedo put a lot of effort into this pile, so he should at least glance at it. When Ainz focuses on the last notebook, Albedo thinks he's found something unusual, but Ainz denies it. He says he just wanted to casually ask Albedo about the progress of drafting the laws for the sorcerous kingdom. Albedo says she and Demiurge have basically finished the first demo version, but Ainz still needs to review it. He bluffs that while he's proficient in many things, he's not very well versed in law, completely stunning Albedo. She says a supreme being like Ainz actually doesn't know something? But then Albedo suddenly realizes that an almighty being wouldn't be bound by laws, leaving Ainz utterly silent. Ainz suddenly compliments Albedo's expression, calling it cute, which makes her cover her face in embarrassment. But then, in the next second, she unleashes her fanatic devotion to Ainz, just like in Season 3, putting the 8 edge assassins on high alert. He continues, saying next he'll review the suggestion letters from everyone in Nazarick. Ainz emphasizes that he's removed the senders' names to ensure their anonymity. He secretly thinks, and also so I can sneak in my own letters. Ainz says the first suggestion is to establish an educational institution for children in the sorcerous kingdom to find talented individuals for Nazarick. Albedo immediately objects, saying humans should just remain humans. Ainz agrees with Albedo's point, stating that it would be extremely dangerous to spread Nazarick's knowledge to outsiders. Instead, he wants to establish an orphanage to boost his own reputation. Albedo agrees with this too, but she's not happy about Negredo and Pestanya managing the facility. She says those two disobeyed Ainz' orders during the Jaldabath incident by sparing the infants. They should have been executed. So Ainz pardoning them is illogical. But he suddenly calls Albedo's name with an affectionate tone, making her extremely flustered. Albedo says if Ainz keeps calling her that, she'll do whatever he asks, completely baffling him. Just a skeleton, and he has that much charm? Makes us regular folks in the real world seem so boring. Huh? Ainz continues. The next suggestion is for everyone to wear a uniform to boost Nazarick's unity. Albedo immediately reacts violently, asking what idiot came up with such a foolish idea, threatening to make them pay dearly. Ainz secretly thinks, oh no, that was my suggestion. Ainz quickly retorts that before asking for suggestions, he promised not to pursue anyone. Fifth suddenly announces that Aura and Mare wish to see Ainz, and he lets them in. As soon as they enter, they want to sit on Ainz' lap, which confuses Ainz a bit, but he eventually lets them. Albedo, seeing this, is incredibly jealous. She says she wants to be like Aura and Mare, making Ainz flustered. He says, aren't you a bit too old for this, Albedo? Which leaves her deeply disappointed. Mare says he doesn't mind if Albedo takes his place, making her overjoyed. Albedo then demands Ainz carry her the way he carried Aura, leaving him utterly speechless again. Ainz feels something soft under his feet. And not only that, Albedo also emits a very pleasant scent. Ainz thinks to himself, this smell is so familiar. I think I've smelled it somewhere before. Ainz compliments Albedo on her pleasant scent, making her eyes light up like car headlights. Albedo says Ainz can smell it for as long as he wants, causing Aura to quietly wonder why Albedo looks so strange with Ainz. Ainz says it's time for them both to get off him, but Albedo uses the excuse that Aura got on first, so logically, she should get to stay on a little longer, leading to the two of them growling at each other. Ainz looks confused. He says he can understand Albedo's expression, but with Aura, could she possibly see Ainz as her father? As his mind drifts off into thought, he suddenly notices everyone staring at him. Ainz apologizes for getting lost in thought. Albedo asks if what Ainz was thinking about was that thing, even though he has no idea what that thing Albedo is referring to is. He nods in agreement. Ainz, as usual, when he doesn't understand Albedo and Demiurge's thoughts, says he'll allow Albedo to explain slowly so Aura and Mare can understand. But it's really so he can understand. She immediately obeys. Albedo says a serious problem has emerged in Irantel, a food shortage. Ainz secretly thinks, so that's what she was talking about in the report I noticed. Albedo continues. Irantel was once a bustling trade hub, but since Ainz took over, Merchants have been too scared to come here. Aura and Mare say, is that all? Those are just minor difficulties for Ainz, causing him to sweat imaginary bullets. Ainz, with a trembling voice, asks Albedo if she's found a solution. And Albedo says she and Demiurge have found a way. The only thing is, Albedo needs to make a trip to the Re-Esti's kingdom soon. Which surprises Ainz. He says she manages everything for both the Sorceress Kingdom and Nazarick, and if he loses her now, it would be difficult for him. Making Albedo overjoyed, she says she'll hurry back to Ainz, and besides, Albedo has already handed everything over to Pandora's actor, which surprises him. Ainz wonders if it's really okay to leave everything to his damn son, his son from hell. Basically, maybe he should go see him. Ainz then goes to Pandora's actor's location. He, as always, greets Ainz with great theatrics, but Ainz manages to stop him. Ainz tells him to sit down and talk, and Pandora's actor sits right next to Ainz, startling him. Ainz secretly thinks normally people sit across from each other, right? Pandora's actor suddenly says he has a request he wants Ainz to grant. Surprising him, Pandora's actor suddenly presses his face close to Ainz's and says it's been a long time since he's been able to touch and classify magic items. Pandora's actor begs Ainz for a chance to do so, surprising Ainz immensely, but mostly at the dramatic flair of Pandora's actor's words. Ainz asks him if he really created Pandora's actor with that personality. And he confirms it. Ainz says he'll tell Shultir to give Pandora's actor the guild ring so he can return to the treasury, and Pandora's actor thanks him. Ainz also instructs Pandora's actor that from now on, he doesn't need to do those military poses or talk so theatrically in front of him. Although Ainz created Pandora's actor with that personality, as a father, Ainz wants Pandora's actor to surpass him, completely surprising him. Fifth, standing nearby, tears through several tissue boxes upon hearing Ainz's words. Pandora's actor says he never expected Ainz to see him as his son. And Ainz is like, oh no, I think I just made a serious mistake. Just as Ainz thought, Pandora's actor immediately changes his way of addressing Ainz to father, startling Ainz. Ainz awkwardly explains that he doesn't want the other guardians to think he's playing favorites with Pandora's actor. So he tells him and Fifth to keep it a secret, and they obey. As Ainz prepares to leave, Pandora's actor calls him back. He says many people have asked the adventurer Momin what future awaits Irantel, and what the Sorceress Kingdom's policies are, which makes Ainz ponder. He stands on a rooftop, thinking to himself, policies for the Sorceress Kingdom? That's a tough question. Fifth, seeing Ainz on the rooftop, also tries to climb up to serve him. Ainz surveys the city and is satisfied with the undead security work. However, he asks Fifth what she thinks of the city. She says she finds it a very livable place but doesn't understand why the citizens hide in their homes when they see Ainz. Ainz asks Fifth what she thinks of humans, and she says they are pathetic, inferior creatures, not created by the supreme beings. He secretly thinks, as expected, most Nazarick NPCs have negative opinions of humans. Ainz suddenly notices the Adventurers Guild and enters to check it out. He's incredibly surprised by how deserted it is. The frightened receptionist immediately appears to greet Ainz. He asks her if the place hasn't become too sparse, and the receptionist tremblingly replies that since all the monsters around here have been eliminated, monster slaying and escort quests are virtually non-existent. Ainz says so. It's because the undead are doing too good of a job. Huh? He asks if the Adventurers Guild master, Ainz, is present, and the receptionist tremblingly says he's upstairs. Ainz bows before Ainz, surprised that he would come to such a shabby place. Ainz suddenly doesn't know where to start, almost like he's back in his old world doing client prospecting. Ainz states directly that he wants to merge the Adventurers Guild with the Sorceress Kingdom. But surprisingly, Ainz doesn't object at all, he simply obeys. Ainz wonders, haven't adventurers guilds in other countries always refused to be merged into a state? Why is Ainz agreeing so easily? But he remains silent. Ainz says he knows Ainz plans to send all the adventurers he has to neighboring countries, giving him an empty guild, right? Ainz gives a faint smile, subtly confirming it. Ainz suddenly asks him why the Adventurers Guild doesn't want to be managed by a nation. Ainz replies that the purpose of the Adventurers Guild is to protect people from monsters, not to participate in wars. Ainz says protect the people. Huh? He asks Ainz if, in his opinion, the elves are also among the people he's referring to, and Ainz confirms. Ainz asks then why are they being treated as slaves in the Baharuth Empire, and Ainz isn't protecting them, leaving him speechless. Ainz continues, what about races like lizardmen, goblins, or ogres? To some extent, aren't they not much different from humans? Leaving Ainz utterly stumped. After seating Ainz begins to explain that he actually feels adventurers aren't doing their jobs correctly, surprising Ainz. Ainz continues, in his opinion, the real job of adventurers should be to explore new lands, to go where no one has ever set foot, not just doing monster slaying or escort quests. Astonishing Ainz. Ainz continues, Ainz is probably wondering why he wouldn't just send his undead subordinates to do that. Ainz says it's true he could let the undead explore new lands, but unfortunately, they lack diplomatic skills, which is why he needs Ainz's Adventurers Guild, making Ainz see the logic. Ainz asks then why doesn't Ainz issue quest requests? If it's a quest sent to the Adventurers Guild, someone will surely take it. Ainz says that is indeed a way, but the problem is, if those adventurers unfortunately come into conflict with the nation they explore, who will be responsible for that? Can Ainz's Adventurers Guild resolve it? This leaves him speechless. Ainz says that's why he wants to merge the Adventurers Guild with the Sorceress Kingdom. He tells him not to worry about him using adventurers as an army to invade other countries, because if he really wanted to do that, don't the undead at Ainz's disposal already have more than enough power to do it? It sounds illogical but is incredibly convincing. After Ainz's 300-page speech, Ainz finally sees the light. He says he wants to contribute to Ainz's plan, which pleases Ainz. Truly, the god of diplomacy, the king of words, the master of logic, the lord of negotiation, Ainz Ul Gaun. After leaving the Adventurers Guild, Ainz tells Fifth that he deeply cherishes the creations of his guildmates, which makes her overjoyed. Ainz continues, but the people of Rantel can also be considered an extension of Nazarick, so he thinks they should also enjoy the prosperity from him. Fifth completely agrees. Ainz says, how about this? They should build a kingdom that only exists in the sweetest dreams. A place where everyone will beg him to rule them forever, which makes Fifth marvel at the idea. She says it's absolutely wonderful. Ainz continues, his country won't just have humans, but it will also be a place where demi-humans can live in harmony. Let the whole world see the prosperity of submitting to Ainz Ul Gaun. Ainz secretly thinks that if he truly succeeds in recreating the Ainz Ul Gaun Guild in the Sorcerous Kingdom, he'll have something to brag about to his guildmates if they ever happen to be transported to this world. Ainz lies in bed, thinking about developing the Sorcerous Kingdom. It's truly not an easy task, but fortunately, this country already has two immortal geniuses, Albedo and Demiurge, so he's relieved about that. If Ainz can truly recreate the Ainz Ul Gaun Guild in this world, that would be wonderful, but he also secretly understands that it won't be easy, causing Ainz to sigh, which completely alarms Fifth. If he were to tell Albedo and Demiurge these thoughts now, it might hinder their plans for world conquest, even though Ainz doesn't even understand why they want to conquer the world. Fifth suddenly kneels and says that as a maid, allowing Ainz to sigh so dejectedly is a sin that can only be atoned for by sacrificing her life. Ainz is like what just happened. Renner is reading to the children when Climb informs her it's time to leave, making the children sad. Renner says goodbye to them before getting into the carriage to return to the capital. Evil Eye says she never expected Renner to build such a large orphanage. Renner replies that after being supported by her older brother, Prince Zanak, and with a suggestion from Brain, Renner decided to do this. She continues, since the battle on the Cat's Plains ended, many children have been orphaned, and Renner hopes she can do something for them, making Climb recall the day Renner took him in. Evil Eye says doing charity without an accounting statement? No, I mean, without expecting anything in return? She comments that Renner is truly suspicious, but Tina defends Renner, saying only someone with a twisted soul like Evil Eye would think that, making her angry. Renner says that initially, Brain wanted to take in children with sword talent to train them, which is where she got the idea to establish this orphanage. If they could find children with talent in various fields, it would definitely benefit the Re-Esti's kingdom. Renner asks Evil Eye and Tina if they've seen any potential children among those she's taken in, and they say it's hard to tell by just observing with the naked eye. Renner asks what about you two? What are your talents, surprising them both. Tina says talent is an adventurer's trump card, so they would never reveal it, but Renner keeps pestering, forcing Evil Eye to tell her. She says she'll whisper it to Renner because she doesn't want anyone to hear, making Renner trust her. She leans her ear close to Evil Eye's mouth to listen, but Evil Eye suddenly yells as if she'd tell Renner her secret, making Renner's ears ring. Evil Eye scolds Climb for spoiling Renner too much, which is why she's so unruly today, but Renner tells Climb to spoil her even more because she likes it anyway. But this hits Climb in a sensitive spot, making him blush. Climb says, by the way, I haven't seen Lachius and the other two members of Blue Rose. Evil Eye explains that since Gagarin and Tia were just revived after being defeated by Jaldabath, Lachius is training them so they can regain their strength as soon as possible. Evil Eye emphasizes that Jaldabath is indeed a terrifying demon. If he reappears, they can only hold him off until that person arrives. Tina asks if Evil Eye means Momin, and she suddenly changes her attitude completely. Evil Eye, like a child, says yes, as long as he's here, even if it's the demon Emperor Jaldabath or the Sorcerer King Ainz Ul Gaun. It's no problem. Tina says but Momin has already become subservient to the Sorcerer King. Hasn't he? Evil Eye, disappointed, holds her head and says that's right. I don't understand why he did that. Tina asks directly if Evil Eye, with her current power, can kill the Sorcerer King. Surprising her, Evil Eye says if what people rumored about the battle on the Cat's Plains is true, only Momin has enough power to defeat Ainz. In the capital, Prince Zanak is being briefed by his attendant that they still haven't found any trace of Grand Prince Barbaro. He tells them to keep searching, and the attendant obeys. And by the way, he hasn't seen Marquis Raven. Zanak says he hasn't seen him since the battle on the Cat's Plains, and he speculates that Raven is probably hiding in his territory by now. A maid suddenly announces to Zanak that Princess Renner has returned, and Zanak immediately goes out to meet her. Zanak secretly thinks that losing Marquis Raven's power and knowledge is too difficult for him. But as the heir to the throne, Zanak will have to quickly figure out how to deal with the Sorcerous Kingdom. When Zanak and Renner are talking privately, Renner says the Sorcerous Kingdom's diplomatic delegation is arriving soon. If Zanak wants to send tribute to the Sorcerous Kingdom, why not send double to the envoy? Zanak is incredibly surprised by Renner's wisdom. Just then, a soldier runs in to report that a diplomatic delegation from the Sorcerous Kingdom has just arrived. Zanak tells Renner that if he can become king, Zanak will grant Renner land in some distant place for her to live out the rest of her life. Renner outwardly thanks Zanak profusely, but as soon as he leaves, Renner secretly thinks Zanak's offer no longer holds any appeal for her. Brain, meanwhile, is performing his six-fold slash of light martial art in front of Loffen, someone who could be considered Gazef's teacher. He compliments Brain's technique. Loffen says it seems Brain has changed. hasn't he? The first time he met him was after Brain's defeat by Gazef at the Royal Sword Arts tournament. And at that time, his expression was terrible. Brain says he was still naive then, thinking he could defeat any opponent. But reality always slaps us in the face. Laufen asks, so Brain has faced death before? He emphasizes that only those who have faced death truly appreciate life. Laufen asks Brain about the power of the Sorcerer King Ainz, and he says he's incredibly terrifying, capable of killing his disciple, Gazef, in the blink of an eye. Surprising Laufen, Brain confides that he's looking for someone to replace Gazef's position, and Laufen wonders why Brain doesn't just do it himself. Brain says he's not suited for that position. Brain is gathering potential children to find someone worthy. Surprising Laufen, back at the palace, Zanak is now wearing ceremonial armor, preparing to receive the Sorcerous Kingdom's diplomatic delegation. As he sees their figures in the distance, dark clouds gather ominously, alarming everyone. Zanak tells the soldiers there to remain calm. They must not show hostility to avoid offending the Sorcerous Kingdom, and everyone obeys. A dark knight from Ainz's delegation suddenly rides his horse toward them. He introduces himself as a Death Cavalier, part of the Sorcerous Kingdom's diplomatic delegation here to visit the Re-Esti's kingdom. Zanak introduces himself as Zanak, second prince of the Re-Esti's kingdom, ordered by the king to welcome them. Cavalier says he understands and will relay this to the delegation leader before leaving. Cavalier formally introduces the head of the Sorcerous Kingdom's diplomatic delegation, the right hand of the Sorcerer King Ainz, Lady Albedo, leaving Zanak overwhelmed by her flawless beauty. At the reception for the Sorcerous Kingdom's envoy, Philip, the third son of a small noble family, stands drinking alone. He secretly thinks that just because they have money and power, the high-ranking nobles dare to look down on him. Philip blames everything on his old man. If he were in charge, Philip would have implemented groundbreaking reforms long ago. The majordomo suddenly makes a grand introduction. This is our special guest for tonight's party, Lady Albedo. Everyone applauds. Philip, however, is immediately captivated by Albedo's exquisite beauty. Philip unconsciously walks towards her, thinking this is a wonderful opportunity for him. Philip approaches Albedo, surprising her. He introduces himself as Philip, heir to the Baron Montserrat family, and asks if he could make her acquaintance, shocking all the guests at the party. After Philip returns home, his father scolds him soundly for his intention to invite the Sorcerous Kingdom's envoy to a ball. He says he sent Philip to the party only for other nobles to acknowledge his inheritance of the Montserrat house. But Philip tells his father not to be so angry, because their territory is close to the Sorcerous Kingdom, so building a relationship with Ainz's country is a sensible thing to do. Philip's father angrily asks, the Sorcerer King killed your older brother, and you still want to build a relationship with the Sorcerous Kingdom? But Philip replies emotionlessly, that's exactly why a third son like me gets to inherit. Completely shocking his father, he asks Philip if he's not afraid of making enemies with neighboring nobles. And he innocently replies no one will notice, leaving his father speechless. He sighs, saying their territory only consists of a small village, and they've only managed to survive until today by frequently trading crops with other places. Philip asks then why don't they receive aid from the Sorcerer King, surprising his father. He wonders why the Sorcerer King would provide aid to a village in another country. Philip says if he were the Sorcerer King, he would do that to show everyone he's a generous ruler. Philip's father asks if there's anything else, and he innocently replies that's all, bewildering his father. Philip says that as long as they have intelligence, using the Sorcerer King as a pawn will be nothing difficult, leaving his father utterly speechless. He says he has nothing left to say to Philip. The butler says there's one more important thing. They don't even have a place to host a ball. But Philip says a certain lady promised to sponsor him from a disease, completely surprising his father. He asks who that person is and why she would do that. Philip confidently replies that she probably saw his potential. Philip asks if they've ever heard the name Hilma, surprising them both. Philip is now at the ball hosted by Hilma under his name. Philip feels annoyed because everyone approaches and greets her while ignoring his presence. Hilma notices Philip's presence and approaches him. She asks Philip if he's feeling unhappy because everyone is only paying attention to her, and he immediately denies it. Hilma says she helped Philip achieve his goal without any effort on his part, so she hopes he's not hiding anything from her, and Philip happily agrees. He tells Hilma that the people attending tonight's ball don't seem very elite. Do they? She says it's true, they're all just second or third sons of noble families, but isn't it enough that you lead them? Making Philip puff up with approval. When Albedo takes Philip's arm, he feels like he's the ruler of the world. Philip secretly thinks she's just too beautiful, and she also emits a wonderful fragrance. Philip gathers his courage and asks Albedo if she's married, surprising Albedo. She says that's a strange question. Albedo replies, unfortunately, I'm still single right now, making Philip overjoyed. Philip secretly thinks looks like I still have a chance, and smugly rests his hand on Albedo's shoulder when suddenly a sound like shattering glass unexpectedly rings out, startling him. In reality, it was Albedo's incredibly loud grinding of teeth, but Philip didn't realize it. Hilma secretly thinks this most luxurious ballroom is filled with nothing but common third-rate nobles. The saddest thing is, they don't even know they're being used. Philip approaches Hilma and tells her that Albedo seems unwell. Hilma says she'll take Albedo to her room to rest, and Philip also demands to go along. Hilma explains that it wouldn't be good for a man to enter Albedo's room if he's not her husband. Only then does Philip understand. This guy is truly baffling. Is he really that stupid or just pretending? If it were me, I'd also demand to go along to help. Philip suddenly asks Hilma what she thinks if he were to pursue Albedo. freezing her. Philip continues, although the sorceress kingdom is very strong militarily, it's still just a small nation. He thinks he's perfectly capable of seducing Albedo. Terrifying Hilma, she secretly thinks, what the heck? If she hears that, even I might not survive. Hilma immediately denies that possibility. She tells Philip he won't have a chance with Albedo and immediately leaves. Albedo wipes the spot where Philip touched her with a handkerchief and says how disgusting. She emphasizes that only one man in this world is allowed to touch her body with desire. Accompanied by teeth grinding that sounds like she wants to devour someone alive. Terrifying Hilma, she says if Albedo wants, Hilma will immediately prepare another pawn to replace him. But Albedo says Philip's stupidity has already made a strong impression on the nobles at the royal party. So abandoning him now would be a waste. Afterwards, Albedo enters a room where the other members of Eight Fingers are waiting. She orders them to quickly transfer the Re-Estize kingdom's food to the sorceress kingdom, and they obey. The members of Eight Fingers all agree to offer it to Ainz. But Albedo says that's not necessary. She tells them to just sell it to the sorceress kingdom at a fair price. And they all obey. Next, Albedo goes to Renner. She tells her to look up. And Renner does, revealing her wickedness at the same time. Albedo is a little surprised at first. But then she gives Renner a strange black box. She says this is Renner's reward for the Jaldabath plan, 90% of which was her idea. Renner quickly thanks Albedo. If you didn't know, inside that box is a seed of the fallen, which can help the user change their race. Albedo says another similar box will be given to Renner when the sorceress kingdom completely annesses the Re-Estize kingdom, and she obeys. Albedo suddenly changes her attitude, saying that enough of the rigid talk. From now on, Renner should tell her about her pet, referring to Climb, and Renner happily agrees. This part ends here. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit the like button, share, subscribe to Anime Recaps 95 channel, comment below. Goodbye and see you all in the next videos.